The subway car screeched as it pulled into the station, stale heat wafting through the doors as passengers shuffled in, faces dull, backs slouched, eyes lost in personal voids. Among them, Raya clutched her tote bag tightly, her eyes bleary from the 16-hour hospital shift she'd just finished. She found a seat near the end of the car and exhaled. Her limbs ached. Her thoughts were fogged. Another day survived. The train jolted forward. Across from her, someone had vomited in the corner earlier. It hadn't been cleaned. People stood crammed shoulder to shoulder, their silent wariness forming invisible walls between them. Then the mood shifted. Not subtly, but like a wave passing over the crowd. Eyes darted to the doors as they opened at the next stop. The figure stepping in wasn't human. Not even close. It had to duck under the doorframe, its hunched frame still towering over everyone. Covered in layers of tattered dark fabric, claws half hidden beneath, it moved with a grace that defied its bulk. Glimpses of iridescent, scale-like skin flashed under the coat as it walked forward. Its eyes glowed faintly beneath the hood, slitted, alien, but not threatening. No one made space. No one spoke. They recoiled instead. Some turned their backs. Others pretended not to see it. Raya watched, frowning. The creature hesitated, scanning the car. Its eyes met hers briefly, then moved on. It didn't growl or gesture. It simply looked for a place to exist. There was none. Then it clutched a small object close to its chest, an orb of sorts, cracked and old, emitting faint pulses like a heartbeat. It seemed to take comfort from it. Raya stood. She didn't overthink it. She didn't care what anyone else saw or didn't. She motioned lightly toward her seat, offering it. The creature froze. A stillness entered the car. For a second, no sound existed. Then it nodded, slowly, deeply. It didn't speak, but its chest expanded as though it had just drawn its first real breath in hours. Carefully, it lowered itself into the seat. The cloak brushed against her leg as it passed, and she felt a strange warmth, not uncomfortable, just different. She gripped the pole beside it, standing silently, staring at the graffiti across from her. No thank you? No acknowledgement from anyone else. Just her, and the being now seated beside her. She noticed its hands. 4 fingers, scaled, armored, but trembling slightly. It turned the orb over in its palm with delicate reverence. The edges of its robe curled in response to subtle changes in the air. She caught a scent, faint metal, something ancient, almost ozone-like. Still, she said nothing. Not out of fear. Because nothing needed to be said. The train rocked. A few stops later, the creature stood. Before it exited, it turned to her. A long pause passed. Then it extended a single clawed finger toward her chest, hovering just inches from her skin. With 2 fingers, it then tapped its own heart. Once. A low vibration passed through the floor beneath her as the doors opened. It stepped out without another look. Raya blinked. People began whispering again, screens lifted to capture grainy, useless images after the moment had passed. The car rolled on. The smell of oil and stale coffee returned. No one thanked her. No one cared. The space on the bench stayed empty. She didn't think about it for the rest of the ride. By the time she reached her apartment and shed her soaked hoodie, the gesture had already started to fade from memory. A good deed. A weird passenger. Just New York things. But something lingered. Not worry or pride, just a sense that something important had happened and she wouldn't recognize it until much later. The kind of moment where life doesn't shift instantly, but quietly starts veering off course in a way you only understand looking back. The next day passed uneventfully. So did the one after that. Work. Noise. Headaches. Traffic. Subway delays. Life continued. Until the sky changed. 2 mornings later, just after sunrise, the skies ruptured. Not with fire or noise, but silence. Over every major city, massive vessels appeared, eclipsing clouds and sun alike. Their surfaces shimmered like obsidian glass, silent and unmoving. New York had 3. One hovered directly over the East River, casting its shadow over downtown. News broke within minutes, speculation flooding every channel: alien invasion, mass hallucination, government psyop. Experts contradicted each other in real time. No weapons were fired. No communication attempted. Just presence. Enormous, undeniable, watching. Raya stood at her apartment window, toothbrush in hand, heart pounding. The largest ship hadn't moved since it arrived. It had no visible propulsion, no seams or markings. Just pure black surface, its shape unlike anything aerodynamic. People outside stopped walking. Traffic froze. The city, for once, fell into synchronized awe and terror. Her phone buzzed endlessly, emergency alerts, messages from family, forwarded theories. A friend texted her a grainy image of symbols appearing on the side of a government building downtown. They weren't graffiti. They shimmered like molten metal, perfectly symmetrical, etched into the walls as if grown there. Raya stared, her pulse quickening. She remembered the orb the creature had held. The patterns were identical. Later that day, armed forces surrounded the base of the ship. Jets buzzed overhead, drones scanned it, but no response came. Broadcasts were sent in every major language. The vessels remained silent. Satellites tried to penetrate the hulls. Data returned blank. Global coordination accelerated. United Nations went into lockdown. Scientific communities requested patience. Military advisors warned against it. That evening, something stranger happened. Strangers in dark suits, all unmarked, began showing up at subway stations around the city, especially on the line Raya used. They weren't law enforcement, too polished, too vague. They showed people photographs of an unidentified alien being. None gave their names. They asked questions without inflection. Had anyone interacted with this entity? Seen it, spoken to it, shared space? When one agent tried to approach Raya, she pretended not to hear. Something told her to stay quiet. Not from fear, but instinct. She didn't lie. She simply slipped away into the crowd and didn't come back until after dark. At her apartment door that night, a package lay on the ground. Unmarked. Lightweight. No postage. She hesitated before picking it up. Inside, nestled in black velvet, was a crystal about the size of her palm. Soft blue light pulsed from within. The surface felt warm, like skin, not rock. As she touched it, the light intensified. The crystal projected a three-dimensional image into the room. The alien from the subway appeared. No longer hunched. No longer cloaked. Armor glinted across its chest, regal and ancient. Its wings, tucked tightly then, were now spread behind it like folded banners. Its voice was low, layered, musical, and guttural at once. You offered sanctuary without name, without gain. This act has been seen. The Kathari do not forget such gestures. Your species stands at the edge of judgment. But your moment of mercy weighs heavily. The image flickered, then sharpened. The Council will observe. Your world has been given time. Not much. Decisions come quickly in our realm. Watch the skies, human. Soon, the consequence of kindness will arrive. The projection faded. The crystal dimmed but did not lose its warmth. Raya sat in silence, pulse pounding behind her ears. She didn't understand most of it, but the message was clear. This wasn't random. It was connected. Her. The seat. The alien. The ships. Somehow, it had all become part of a larger decision she hadn't asked to join. The following day, rumors intensified. Cameras picked up subtle changes in the ship's underbellies. Patterns lit up. Global leaders pushed for dialogue. Hacker groups tried breaching military satellites and failed. Religious groups either panicked or declared salvation. Markets crashed and surged erratically. Humanity was officially in limbo, either threatened nor acknowledged. By evening, new symbols lit up along the vessel above the city. The same ones from the building. Identical again to the orb's markings. Raya stared at the sky from her rooftop, crystal gripped in her hands, the weight of something immense pressing into her thoughts. The alien hadn't said when or how. just soon. And now the world was holding its breath, unsure whether salvation or judgment was about to descend. 2 nights later, Raya vanished from her apartment without warning. No door forced, no alarm triggered. One moment she was reviewing patient files on her tablet. The next, darkness swallowed her surroundings. When her vision returned, she was standing on a polished floor of obsidian glass under a ceiling that resembled a living sky. Stars moved above her, not painted or projected, but real, somehow present within the structure. Before her stood the alien she had once given her seat to. Now unmasked, fully armored, and unmistakably commanding. His scales shimmered with gold undertones. Eyes intelligent, unwavering. He spoke her name, not the way humans did, but as if describing her essence. His voice bypassed sound, landing directly in her mind. He identified himself as Varix, emissary of the Cathari Ascendancy, acting authority of Earth's provisional judgment. He explained that Earth was under review, a borderline world teetering on classification. A simple system, uplift or isolation. Inclusion into galactic structure or blacklisted as unstable, primitive. Their protocol didn't favor sentimentality. For centuries, human broadcasts and records had been intercepted, catalogued, evaluated. Warfare, greed, environmental decay. And yet, the Council had remained undecided. One final observation had been allowed. That observation ended the moment Raya gave her seat to him. Cathari culture revered unprompted respect. Not deference to power, but sincere courtesy offered when no gain was to be had. Varix had entered the subway in disguise, tasked to observe final human interactions without influence. No one acknowledged him. No one saw past his alien form, except her. In that cramped subway car, without knowledge, she had passed their test. She tried to interrupt. He raised a hand. Not in aggression, clarity. Her action hadn't saved the world, he clarified. But it had paused its sentence. It had opened a new path. Now Earth would be given a trial, not a test of weapons or knowledge, but of soul. They would be judged by action under pressure, not words. Their compassion, courage, and unity would define their place among stars. She asked why her. Varix explained the Council had chosen her as liaison. Not because she was the most powerful, influential, or intelligent, but because she had made a choice without an audience. A true act, undiluted by motive. That made her qualified to observe, to speak, to represent without distortion. Raya was given the choice to return, to act as a quiet observer. No title. No credit. Just access and information. What she learned, she could share, if she wished. But no one would validate it for her. Her influence would be her own. She accepted. Before returning her, Varix shared something crucial. Earth was not alone in its interest. A rival species, the Threxel Dominion, had petitioned for Earth's acquisition. They viewed humans as adaptable but dangerous, useful as labor, expandable as colonists. Their ships had already positioned near Mars. The Cathari's guarantee of non-intervention would only hold if Earth demonstrated worth. This wasn't war yet. But it was conflict. Soft pressure. Influence and leverage. Raya asked how humans could prove anything to beings that barely understood them. Varix responded simply. Not all proofs are loud. Some are lived. Then he showed her Earth as seen from orbit, not through glass but something deeper. She saw human migrations in heat patterns. Emotional signatures blooming across regions. Acts of kindness flaring like solar flares. Rage and hatred, too, but diluted across billions. He spoke again. You are chaos, but you are choice. The others see danger in that. We see potential. Moments later, she stood in her apartment once more. No sign of tampering. Time hadn't moved. The crystal on her desk now glowed slightly brighter. Embedded within it was new data. A message from the Council, written in their language, encrypted. She spent hours decoding it, unlocking only fragments. Humanity's trial is live. 3 cycles to demonstrate cohesion. Observation zones already active. Raya didn't sleep that night. She watched as news broke about strange aid requests from a distant colony hit by unknown forces. It wasn't Earth's problem. But she recognized the opportunity hidden in it. The Katheri wouldn't wait forever. The clock had started. Earth's soul was now the evidence. The request came quietly. A minor outpost on a neutral moon had suffered a catastrophic breach. Structural failure, oxygen collapse, partial casualties. The official report named it an accident. The Katheri knew better. The Threxel had left no signature but clear intent, elimination without open war. It was bait. A test within a test. Earth was notified discreetly. The message didn't go through governments but leaked through scientific channels, civilian networks, humanitarian aid groups. No command was issued. Just coordinates and need. Initial response from major nations stalled, uncertainty, risk calculations, political red tape. Leaders hesitated to engage off-planet, fearing provocation, exposure, or economic disruption. Meanwhile, volunteers assembled without permission. Engineers, medics, linguists, tradespeople. No mandate. Just will. Raya watched the lists form online. Hundreds, then thousands offered skills. Private funders provided untraceable shuttles. Crowdfunding sites ballooned. A patchwork fleet formed, obsolete vessels, experimental engines, repurposed cargo haulers. They lacked uniformity but had direction. She joined without announcement. Her presence wasn't official, but it wasn't hidden. On board, she found people who didn't want medals, just to help. A nurse who lost her sister in a flood. A welder who'd repaired collapsed schools. A coder who'd built communication tools for isolated tribes. None of them trained for space, but every one of them adapted fast. Arrival at the moon revealed devastation. Collapsed tunnels, exposed core structures, civilians trapped in environmental suits barely functioning. The Katheri watched silently. They didn't interfere, only observed from orbit. The volunteers didn't ask for instruction. They moved. Airlocks were resealed. Emergency shelters inflated. Makeshift oxygen lines rigged from gutted shuttles. Food synthesized, shelter reinforced, medical triage established. Human systems designed for Earth adapted to alien architecture within hours. They weren't elegant. They were effective. The injured didn't understand their languages. It didn't matter. Hands reached. Pressure applied. IVs connected. Even without translation, comfort was communicated. Several of the local colonists wept, not from pain, but confusion. No treaty. No alliance. Why help? The answer came in sweat and silence. Raya worked nonstop, setting up biomonitors, organizing data relays. She didn't need to lead, she just filled gaps. The same way she had on Earth. A janitor collapsed from heat exhaustion. A mechanic pushed through injury to finish patching a power grid. Every human there gave more than required. 3 days in, sabotage struck. An explosion ruptured the med bay. Alarms screamed. Fires spread. Visibility dropped to 0. In the chaos, a Katheri child wandered into the collapsing section. Raya saw the shadow flicker. No thought. She ran. The blast caught her mid-stride. Heat seared her arm. Steel sliced her shoulder. Still, she crawled forward, grabbed the child, and shielded it with her body as debris fell. When she awoke, 2 Katheri healers stood over her. One bowed. Not protocol, genuine. The child sat nearby, silent but unharmed. A camera drone had captured everything. Her sprint. Her shield. Her motionless body after the fall. The footage spread, not through propaganda but through the Katheri's private relay net. Within hours, it reached dozens of species. And with it, the story. Not of a soldier or diplomat. A human nurse, wounded, protecting a stranger without hesitation. Earth didn't declare its worth. It demonstrated it. The moon was stabilized within a week. No banners. No anthem. The humans packed quietly. Many stayed behind to assist long-term. Some transferred knowledge. Others donated their equipment and left with nothing. As they departed, the Katheri ships saluted, beams of light sweeping upward in unison. No words were exchanged. The message had already been sent. On return to Earth, no parades awaited. In fact, many of the volunteers faded back into their lives unnoticed. Media barely covered it. Governments denied involvement. But within the orbital rings above Earth, a new beacon lit up: Katheri Authorization Code. Trial condition elevated. Provisional response sufficient. Humanity had not been perfect. But it had shown clarity under fire. Compassion without command. Courage without certainty. That was the measure. Not their strength, but their instinct to give. And the galaxy had taken notice. The Council assembled without delay. Across a chamber orbiting a dead star, species from every sector gathered. Hundreds of voices, forms, philosophies collided in silent judgment. At the center, a projection shimmered to life, Earth, suspended, spinning slowly. Data cascaded beside it. Reports from the Moon mission. Logs. Testimonies. Visual evidence. No narrators, no commentary. Only truth. The Threxel spoke first, cold and methodical. They highlighted Earth's instability, its wars, greed, emotional volatility. They cited its fractured leadership, ecological mismanagement, unpredictability. To them, humanity was adaptable but erratic. A risk. A fire too easily fed. They pressed for containment, exploitation. Not eradication, utility. The Katheri countered with one sequence. No rebuttal. No speech. Just raw footage of Raya in the medbay. A blur of movement, the moment of impact, her shielding the child. The stillness after. The image froze. Then expanded, cross-cut with hundreds of human efforts from the outpost. Silent cooperation. Impulse-driven compassion. Chaos, yes, but grounded in choice. A third voice entered. A neutral species. Observers. They reviewed behavior across Earth during the observation window. Rising mutual aid, shared innovation, civil movements sparked not by mandate but moral instinct. They acknowledged humanity's contradictions, but argued it was precisely that tension, between ruin and grace, that made them unique. When the vote began, there was no drama. Only slow illumination. One light after another confirming uplift. The majority favored recognition. Not just protection, respect. Earth was granted provisional membership. Access to Katheri archives, limited technology exchange, and cultural interface status. Not full inclusion, earned status, not gifted. Humanity would not be hidden. They would stand visible in the galactic framework, raw and seen. On Earth, the official channels said nothing. No speeches, no broadcasts. Only subtle changes. New signals received. Communication lines opened to satellites never built by human hands. Shifts in orbit patterns. A new constellation blinking above the Pacific. Raya was never named. No medals awarded. She refused the interviews, ignored the inquiries. Her face never appeared in official documents. Her name was buried beneath redactions. But within the Katheri, her act was memorialized, not as myth, but as principle. They called her the unnamed witness. She returned to her life, scarred but whole. The crystal remained on her desk, now inert. Its warmth never returned. But sometimes, late at night, she'd catch it pulsing faintly. A reminder, not a beacon. She never re-entered orbit. Her work stayed grounded. Community clinics, trauma centers, youth mentorship. No one asked her to lead. She didn't need to. On a gray autumn morning, she stepped onto the subway once more. Her shoulders ached. The train was crowded. A man in his 70s stood, swaying gently, gripping the rail with difficulty. People pretended not to notice. She stood and offered her seat. He smiled, surprised. Grateful. No recognition passed between them. Just an ordinary exchange. No ships arrived that day. No messages. No councils. Just a small kindness in a city that had returned to forgetting. But somewhere, in orbit above the moon, a Katheri ship adjusted its course by a fraction. A silent shift, logged without comment. In its memory core, the timestamp of the gesture was recorded, cross-referenced, and preserved. Because the galaxy hadn't changed because of the ship's arrival. Or the Council's vote. Or the sabotage on a distant moon. It had changed long before, in a subway car with stale air and flickering lights, when someone looked past fear and offered comfort without demand. And humanity's place among the stars had not been claimed by force or persuasion. It had been earned, in the quiet, in the unspectacular, in the moment no one saw coming.